Hello, my hojos, and welcome back to the series on YouTube that got the most Oscar nominations for a series about foreign language media, making the shonen jump to shoujo. That's right, the shonen jump to shoujo is now the first poorly made, badly written, musically tone-deaf YouTube series to get multiple Oscar nominations. You know what? Now that I think about it, that email I got saying I won some Oscars and all I had to do to confirm it was to click a link may have been a scam. Fingers crossed that this was the case for Emilia Perez too. We are back once again for the latest installment of my series, Making the Shonen Jump to Shoujo. This is the series where I take popular shonen and seinen and recommend shoujo or josei that are similar to them. Shoujo and josei are manga found in the feminine demographics of media that are often looked down upon or dismissed, so I help you guys by shedding some light on some great shoujo and josei series to help you kick those biases. If you can't find any series in this batch of recommendations, then don't worry, I have 6 more episodes of this series previously that you can check out as well. Just know that any of the manga I recommend here are not meant to be direct comparisons to their shonen or seinen counterparts. These recommendations are used to be a jumping off point so you guys can find your own taste in shoujo and josei, and in no way are meant to be pitted against each other. Some of my recommendations today may just be me thinking they're similar based on vibes. Others could have similarity in their plots. But not everything is going to be 100% the same. So if there's a series you don't think works for the one that I choose, that's too damn bad. You keep watching. And as always, the last disclaimer before we get into the recommendations is that all of these I'm going to be mentioning are available in English in some regard. That means you can either buy these in stores, find them on various apps or online, or you can rent them from your local library. Unfortunately though, that does mean anything out of print, anything unlicensed, or anything incomplete will not be in these recommendations. I gotta keep these as beginner friendly as I can, so that way any sort of manga fan can find shoujo and josei to enjoy. With all that being said, today we have a special romance-centric lineup for February, so let's go ahead and just dive into that chondro shoujo-plasty. Yes, yes, yes! If you liked Ranma half, you might like Hanakimi. The series back on everyone's mind lately has been Ranma half due to its successful rebooted anime adaptation on Netflix. But another classic gender-bending manga adaptation is soon to be coming, which is the equivalent of Ranma half for many shoujo fans. Hanakimi is a completed sports romance series that is a nostalgia bomb for anyone who read manga in the 2000s. And luckily, after all of these years, Hanakimi is back in the spotlight because it will be getting its first ever anime adaptation. So to celebrate, what better way than to recommend you guys go read the manga too. Hanakimi is about a girl named Mizuki who is obsessed with the track and field high jump star Sano. Although Mizuki currently lives in America, one day she decides it's time to go meet him, and to do so, she enrolls in his school back in Japan. The catch? Sano attends an all-boys school. But this doesn't stop Mizuki. She cuts off all of her hair and goes undercover at the boys' school just so she can see Sano's beautiful high jump in real life. However, Sano's no longer on the track and field team, nor does he even high jump anymore. Ever since an injury left him with no confidence, he quit for good. Being the go-getter that she is though, Mizuki won't take this news lying down. She decides she's going to help Sano find his passion once more, all while trying to keep her gender secret from him as well as her new pal Nakatsu. Ranma and Hanakimi are really two sides of the same coin for manga fans. You either found one or the other growing up, and if you're lucky, you found both. While Ranma does have more literal gender switching, Hanakimi's is through drag, with Mizuki switching from boys or girls clothing frequently depending on when she needs to. Still though, either one is probably the water that turned the frogs gay. I mean the manga fans. In addition, I think the comedy and slice of life aspects are similar in both series. Ranma has karate and Hanakimi has track and field. The characters in each share a passion with a sport that kind of backdrops the hijinks that happen throughout the series. Mizuki and Sano end up living together as well. And while Sano does find out about Mizuki's gender pretty quickly, they still have a playful misunderstanding between each other because Mizuki still doesn't know that Sano knows. I think Hanakimi really never got a chance to be more popular in the States like Ranma did because it never had a successful anime adaptation. So with the anime coming soon, I would love to see Hanakimi get a modern fandom going. Hopefully it will hit the same audience of old school gender bender manga lovers. Sure, it does have some outdated humor to it, but so does a lot of our nostalgic favorites, and it also doesn't negate the fact that Hanakimi was pretty progressive for a series that came out in 1996. If you're looking for some more gender-bending fun a la Ranma half, then you cannot miss Hanakimi. The series is completed with 23 volumes and also has an 8-volume 3-in-1 omnibus run from Shoujo Beat. This manga is really one of the quintessential shoujo series for many people, so if you want to make that shonen jump to shoujo, you cannot miss out on this one. If you liked The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity, you might like Fall in Love, You False Angels. Next up, let's give an actual shoujo recommendation for a series that everyone seems to think is a shoujo, even Kodansha as a publisher. Fall in Love, You False Angels is a currently ongoing slice-of-life romance series that will actually be coming out in physicals this month. If you don't want to wait though, because you're impatient, the K-Manga app actually has the first 2 volumes available digitally right now. This series is still relatively new as it only has 4 volumes out in Japan as well, but it's been steadily growing in popularity as it literally just hit 1 million sales. Which means if you read False Angels right now, you can say you love it before everyone starts to call it overrated. The series follows the elegant and beautiful class president Otogi, who is a hot commodity at her school. Boys, girls, and everyone in between fall for the feminine charms of the school Madonna. However, Otogi isn't as classy as she appears. When she's out of school, her facade slips back into the loud, abrasive, self-absorbed person that she truly is. She puts on this ladylike mask due to her perceptive nature of others' expectations of her. The only problem is her fellow class president, Toki Ninome, an equally handsome and elegant boy who she can't quite figure out. That is until Otogi's own mask slips in front of Ninome as a bunch of boys on the street begin to harass them. Once she gives them a tongue lashing, Ninome's own mask slips and his devilish side shows up, making the two partners in crime. False Angels is a much more comedic and slice-of-life forward version of Fragrant Flower, although the themes of people being not quite what they seem are still the same. While Fragrant Flower goes for the more Romeo-Juliet approach with a dash of the delinquent with a heart of gold trope, False Angels goes the route of concealing who you are for ease of living. In either manga though, the dynamics of 2 kindred souls coming together is still there. This is one of False Angels' biggest charm points. Once Otogi and Ninome kind of figure out that they're very similar to each other, they start to have a more honest and really respectful friendship. Even if Otogi does get flustered around him at first, she slowly warms up to him and realizes he's just an ordinary guy after a couple chapters. This is going to be the biggest draw for fans of Fragrant Flower, as the main couple is just as enticing to follow on their journey of self-discovery. I'll be honest, it took me a bit to really get into Fall in Love, You False Angels, as it takes a little bit of time to find its footing. But once it hits volume 2, this is when the series really starts to find its groove. Especially because this is where Otogi and Ninome kind of get past their initial shock of finding out who the other actually is, and they really start to connect beyond that. With Fragrant Flower about to get an anime, and flocks of people probably going to be calling calling it a shoujo as well. I really hope you guys check out Fall in Love, You False Angels. The manga is being released by Kodansha, which has really hardly put out any shoujo this year, and Fall in Love, You False Angels is one of the few physical releases we are getting from them in 2025 so far. It's a really fun manga with gorgeous illustrations to boot. No one can complain about the artwork in this. Plus, it was rumored to get an anime adaptation as well, so be sure to pick up this classic shoujo setup when it comes out. You know what isn't false, my angels? The deals at today's sponsor, Walt's Comic Shop. Are you looking for English language manga in the EU? Then look no further than Walt's Comic Shop. Walt's has thousands of manga currently in stock with an inventory that's growing daily. They offer low shipping prices for any EU country with bulletproof packaging and speedy customer support. When you enter the code Colleen's MangaRex at checkout, you'll get free shipping on your first order of 40 euros. You can get series like Fall in Love, You False Angels, and many more at waltzcomicshop.com, your #1 source for English language manga in Europe. Now let's get back into the recommendations. If you liked Witch Watch, you might like Otaku Vampire's Love Bite. As always, I have to take another opportunity to use a hyped up shonen or seinen series getting an anime adaptation to recommend a shoujo. It's tradition at this point. Otaku Vampire's Love Bite is a currently ongoing romance supernatural series by the same author as Kami-sama Kiss. With only 2 volumes out in English right now, this fun, quirky romp is going to hit that same sweet spot for magic, love, and comedy as Witch Watch. Our series opens up on a vampire girl named Hina Arukado. She may have to stay out of the sunlight, but she's actually been inside all this time because she's a shut-in who hasn't left her house in 30 years. When her dad is finally fed up with her hermit ways, he lends her a DVD of an anime series called Vampire Cross, to which Hina immediately falls in love with it, as well as the charming, heroic Mao, who is a main character. It's after discovering this series that Hina decides to move out of her house in Romania and go to Tokyo, much to her father's dismay. There, Hina meets a boy named Amanatsu, who just so happens to look exactly like Mao, although his personality doesn't quite match like his face does. Amanatsu quickly gets dragged into Hina's otaku activities, and soon after, her vampire ones too. Even if Hina doesn't drink human blood, will she be able to resist the sweet scent of Amanatsu? To me, Witch Watch and Love Bite have very similar premises. Both deal with supernatural magic living situations between 2 characters. Not to mention, they strike a similar balance of romantic overtones with comedic ones. I will say though that Witch Watch is much more of a typical Shonen Jump gag series from what I've read though. So Love Bite may not be as gag forward if that's what you're interested in most. Outside of these similarities, Otaku Vampire's Love Bite is really just an addicting series to read. Hina is just a very outgoing and sweet otaku girl right off the bat. However, we do get to see her cool, darker side every now and then, as she is the daughter of one of the highest ranking vampires in the vampire world, which means her power level is through the roof in this lore, giving us some great scenes of her bending other vampires to her will, even if she hates doing it. At first, her relationship with Amanatsu is pretty reluctant, although the two start to warm up to each other pretty gradually, especially as Hina starts to see him more as an actual person and not just a Mao stand-in. With only 2 volumes out right now, it'll be fun to see where their relationship takes them, as we haven't gotten too much progress in that regard so far. For any fans of Witch Watch though, you'll be sure to have a fun time reading Otaku Vampire's Love Bite, especially if you already knew that you enjoyed Kami-sama Kiss, whether it be the anime or the manga. The series is still relatively new, there's only 2 volumes out right now, so you don't have to do much buying if you want to catch up to this series. If you liked The Dangers in My Heart, you might like Timon's B-side. You might think this one is a stretch, but hear me out. I know Dangers in My Heart is super popular right now, and with Timon's B-side getting an anime soon, there's no better time than to recommend it right now. Timon's B-Side is an ongoing idol comedy series that has a similar amount of that dark humor. However, points to this one for having the dark humor not be about the boy imagining killing a girl in his class. Yes, I'm not a fan of the initial premise of Dangers in My Heart. Sue me. Timon's B-Side is a manga about a girl named Utage who stands the idol group face. Her bias is Timon, who is the center of the group. But his boyish charm and positivity is what really drew her to him. To help fund her idol group purchases, Utage takes up a job at a cleaning service company where she's called in for a new client's home. There she finds a reclusive, dark-eyed, timid boy who happens to resemble her idol Timon. In fact, it is Timon. It turns out that the idol Timon and the real Timon are two completely different personalities. The real Timon is actually someone who is a self-conscious, depressed mess who is constantly apologizing for his existence. Utage is beyond shocked by this revelation, but she resolves herself to help Timon find confidence so he can keep going on as her favorite idol. However, this task may be hard as she never is quite sure when Timon is going to flip his switch into idol mode. If you're a fan of Dangers in My Heart for some goofy character shenanigans and some dark humor, then Timon's B-Side is going to be a good introduction for the shoujo version of this. Instead of Timon wanting to inflict pain on other people though, he'd rather just do it to himself. There are a lot of suicide jokes that might be off-putting for some people, but it does strike a good balance of self-hatred that just gently toes the line with its comedy. There's also that similar theme between these two of someone you think you might know could actually be completely different. The character dynamics between Timon and Utage don't really have that power dynamic of idol and fan relationship either. Right off the bat, there's a stark difference between both of Timon's personalities, so it's pretty easy for Utage to view him as a completely different person when he's not in his idol persona. The two personalities do come to blend at times, which is when the romance happens in this one. But outside of this, in his more depressed mode, which is like the sad version of Depeche Mode, we get more of the comedy that makes this manga really laugh out loud funny, unlike the dumb joke I just made. While I think these two series serve very different kinds of wish fulfillment for different audiences, Timon's B-Side is still a really funny series that I would recommend to anyone. The manga is currently ongoing and only has 6 volumes out right now. Plus, the anime should be coming out relatively soon. We don't have an exact date yet, but we already know the staff behind it, we have the voice actors, so we should find out when it's coming out soon. In the meantime, you can stream Face's song on YouTube and stand Timon. If you liked Fire Punch, you might like Angel Sanctuary. For our last recommendation, I have a complete 180 for you. All the ones previously were rom-coms, so let's get fucking weird now. Welcome to the twisted minds of Fujimoto and Kaoriyuki. Fire Punch has a bit of a reputation on manga Twitter, but the same could be said for Angel Sanctuary too. This one is a completed 20-volume supernatural fantasy series that is just as weird, wild, and gritty. If you don't know anything about these two mangas, then we'll just kind of like throw up all of the possible trigger warnings for if you want to check either one of them out. Or avoid them entirely. The plot of Angel Sanctuary can get a bit confusing, but the premise is about a boy named Setsuna. He is a bit of a violent delinquent type, but when he sees blood, he gets dizzy and falls asleep immediately. This isn't his only vice though. He's also, unfortunately, in love with his little sister Sarah, who is a year younger than him. Setsuna is painfully aware of how messed up these feelings are, so he tries to distance himself from her as much as possible. But as he comes to discover more about himself, these feelings only begin to grow. Setsuna is actually a reincarnation of the organic angel Alexiel, who waged wars on the heavens after finding out about her fellow angels having slaughtered groups of demons when God disappeared. Alexiel's twin brother Rosiel was sealed in the earth after this war. Now awakened, Rosiel vows to get revenge upon his sister by awakening her within Setsuna. This comes at Setsuna's own expense though, as Alexiel's awakening is said to cause his death, as well as the end of Tokyo as they know it. If you're someone who has already read Fire Punch, you may have already drawn the comparisons between these two series while I was giving that synopsis. There's a lot that these two have in common with each other, and not just the incest. They deal with a lot of heavy topics like survival and the burdens of your past, all while wrapped up in action-heavy, superpowered fights between godly creatures. They also each revel in how much pain they can cause the main protagonists. My bet would be that Agni suffers more though, just because of, you know, the circumstance that he's under. The biggest difference between Fire Punch and Angel Sanctuary though is the fact that Angel Sanctuary is dripping in gothic artwork. Instead of being very gritty in its depiction of violence, all the scenes are very delicate, like a Hot Topic employee who perfectly put on their emo clothes in the morning. This is of course the quintessential style of Kaori Yuki, most known for her other title from Shoujo Beat, Godchild. That series has more of a gothic Victorian horror vibe, but Angel Sanctuary is more of beauty found in terror kind of aesthetic, which honestly is how I would imagine a real depiction of an angel would be anyway. I think anyone looking for another violent, messed up story that they just can't help but be addicted to needs to check out Angel Sanctuary. The series really just captures that late 90s shoujo vibe where everyone was writing about the end of the world. I wonder why. Unfortunately, Angel Sanctuary isn't super easy to get your hands on because it is kind of like an out-of-print series. However, if you want to read it still, you can get the ebooks, or you could go to your local library and request them. The manga is a quite hefty 20 volumes as well as pretty messed up, but if you're okay with that, I would highly recommend checking this one out. And with that, we have come to an end of our vaguely Valentine's themed recommendations. Love and romance, even if it's fucking weird, were a central part of many of the series that I recommended today, but I still tried to make sure that there was enough secondary things going on that you could still enjoy it if you're not much of a romance fan. So I hope that I was able to give you something in this list that you found interesting, even if that last recommendation may have been a hard sell for many of you. Other than that one though, I do think many of these series I recommended would be a great read for any manga fan. Just make sure to either buy, rent, or watch the anime to support them so publishers and companies can know we want more shoujo manga. Alright, so that is the end of today's video. As always, thank you my hojos for watching. Welcome to any new hojos. Read Chihaya Furu. I'm sick of saying it. Just read it. Please, just read Chihaya Furu. Chihaya wants you to read Chihaya Furu. Okay? So read it. And I'll see you guys in my next video. And one more thing before we close out, we've got merch, everybody. Sweaters, hoodies, t-shirts, hats, stickers, mugs, you name it. If you want to grab yourself a piece of merch, then go ahead and go to Colleen's Mangarex-shop.fourthwall.com to get yourself some today.